He's asking that if you have a relay device, if you don't know what a lighting relay device is, it's where power from your sub panel box will get sent through the relay device, right? And the relay device will turn on and off your lights all at once, right? So you would plug in all of your lights to the relay device, and then that relay device will be hardlined in to the main sub panel box. And it's easier to do it that way than having a timer, right, on each and every single individual light. Is back in the day, that's what a lot of people would do. They would buy individual timers, but over time, the timers, because most time, even they're digital or analog, they would get off sequence, right? So they would have two lights in their grow room, or four lights or eight lights or whatever, each on different timers. And five of the lights would turn on and off relatively at the same time, but one or two might turn on or turn off a few minutes later. So that is what creates the value for a relay device, right? Because that hardlines into your sub panel box, you plug all the lights in, and then you plug the relay device into one single timer. And then that one single timer will turn on and off all the lights. So in the industry, they started producing 4 light, 8 light, 16 light relay devices. And there's a lot of value actually with the relay device for most people. They'll work for a couple years, but they don't have the nicest equipment and material inside of them. And I found that they're overcharging the products, right? They're charging, $300 for a relay device when it's $30 of materials inside the box. It's relatively pretty easy to go down to your local electrician store, purchase a relay device, and then hook up your own lights. And that's what we would do. We actually would create our custom relay devices because we found it to be a greater value, especially when making a custom room, to use conduit piping, Schedule 40 conduit piping. We would run plastic conduit. It's really easy to bend the conduit too, or even by a 90 or 45 or whatever angle you need. And you would run it around your grow room, and you would install plugs every, 8 feet or however far you needed them. And you would normally install these specific conduit system a little higher up in your grow room to get it out of the way, because this conduit system would be dedicated to your light system. And this is what we would do. It didn't matter whether it was the 6 light grow rooms we'd custom build for people or the 500 plus light grow room at the mushroom farm. We would create a single relay device connected to the main power box, and then we would run a Schedule 40 gray conduit piping throughout the grow room higher up, and that was a dedicated line for our lights. And then we would plug the lights into our light outlets that we customize. And then through this portion, we would normally run that electrical line at 220 because it would pull less amperage, and we would be able to hook up more lights with the same amount of power versus if we're using a 110. So to answer your question, for me personally, I would have the relay device. If it was a custom one, I would have the relay device closest to my sub panel box, and I'd run a custom conduit system. If you have a small enough grow room, and maybe you might have a 15 by 15 foot grow room or something, then yes, if you have a relay system that comes from, let's say, like, for example, DL Wholesale, and we provide them here on perfectgardens.com, then yeah, you could go to Home Depot and buy a couple 20 or 30 foot extension cords and run them. The issue though is you have all these extension cords going through your grow room, and that shit gets in the way at some point. You're going to want to make sure that buy a couple packets of zip ties and zip tie them out of the way. In addition, you don't want to run large amounts of power far distances. It's just not recommended. And it gets expensive. Buying extension cords is not cheap anymore. You're not going to want to buy the cheap thin extension cords. You're going to want to buy the heavier gauge extension cords, right? At least a 12 gauge extension cord, and which are heavier extension cords. So before you know it, you might fix your problem with a relay system that's generic, that comes from one of the indoor growing facilities like DL Wholesale or Sunlight Supply or something along those lines. That might solve your problem. But buying extension cords and, hooking all those up and everything you needed versus just running a custom Schedule 40 conduit system, just Google it, right? It's super easy. Just this past week, I ran over 300 feet of Schedule 40 conduit piping. right? All by myself because I learned how to do it from indoor growing. Now I ran electrical systems around my house because I wanted more power in different places. So if you've never done this and your operation is getting to the size where you need to do stuff like this, then I highly recommend you go through the process of learning to do it yourself because it's easy. It's really inexpensive compared to what it used to be. And especially having to do extension cords and all these other things, especially if your operation is growing to this size, I think you just should bite the bullet and figure out how to do it yourself. Right. Over time, it will be less expensive. And at any point, you can always add more conduit and run more lights.